Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. This is gonna be a pretty interesting one because I'm a massive Ninja Turtles fan, so let's talk about it. Now, there's a lot of stuff in this movie that I liked, and there's also some stuff in this movie that I did not like, so let's talk about the stuff I didn't like too much first. So, the first thing I did not like about this movie was the character designs. Now, I like the turtles in this movie. I think the turtles and the mutants, for the most part, look pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, the turtles in this one, they look great. They always look great, and I like how they incorporate a little bit of pieces of different Ninja Turtles designs, and they kind of mash them up into one design, and I think they did that really well. But even though the designs of the turtles were pretty good, the human and mutant designs in this movie were really hit or miss. The humans in this movie look really, really ugly. Like, even April, who's supposed to look a little better than the rest of the humans in this movie, still looks a little off. Like, there's characters in this movie that are human, and they are really, really funny looking. Like, there's something about the designs of the humans in this movie that just looks really off, in my opinion. And I think that was done on purpose because the message of this movie is the turtles being accepted by humans. But why did you guys have to make the humans so ugly? They really look really ugly in this movie, and I think in some cases that works, but it got really distracting when there was a really ugly human design, and I was just like, what did they do to these guys? Another thing in this movie that I feel like is kind of wasted, but it's also done well, is the casting. You had Giancarlo Esposito as Baxter Stockman, who is the absolute perfect choice to play Baxter Stockman. He's intimidating, and honestly, both in terms of voice and on-screen acting, he'd be perfect as Baxter Stockman. But in this movie, he's only in the movie for like 5 minutes. I was like, yes! Giancarlo Esposito is Baxter Stockman, perfect casting. I really cannot wait to see that. And then he's in the movie for like 5 minutes, and he's not even like an intimidating Baxter Stockman. He's like this broke old hobo Baxter Stockman. I'm just like, what did they do? You had perfect casting right there to have the most intimidating version of Baxter Stockman ever put to screen, or the most intimidating Baxter Stockman in all of Turtle history, and then you just have him play like the broke old hobo one that like is in the movie for 5 minutes? In my opinion, that was some really wasted casting, and I hope he gets to play Baxter Stockman in another Turtles project because he is really the perfect person to play Baxter Stockman. But man, I feel like he was just put in the wrong movie. Another thing about this movie that I did not like was the Gen Z references, because there's a lot of them in this movie, and honestly, they get old pretty fast. Every time a scene would pop up where I was invested in what was going on, there would be this reference to some influencer, they'd reference COVID or something, and honestly, I just did not care for any of it. Every time it just kind of took me out of the story, and I was like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we referencing a lot of this really, really cringe stuff? And in some way I was fine with these references because the 90s movie, which I still consider to be the best Ninja Turtles movie, it had a lot of references to 90s and 80s culture and stuff like that. So because the 90s movie was a product of its time, it makes sense that this movie is a product of its time. The problem is, a product of the 90s is always going to be better than a product of today. The 90s movie might have become dated after 10 or 20 years, but this movie, in the next couple of years, is immediately going to become dated because our modern day society and culture when it comes to these things is really, really fast. So tomorrow or next week or next year, a lot of these things that they reference in the movie could just become outdated and forgotten. I also did not like the way that they did the origin story in this movie because there's usually 2 different kinds of origins to Ninja Turtles. One of them being that Hamato Yoshi was a Japanese man who taught the Ninja Turtles once he became Splinter, and in my opinion that's the best Ninja Turtles backstory. But then you have the other one where Splinter was a rat who learned martial arts from another source. Maybe he read it from a book, or maybe he learned it from somewhere else, and sometimes that works, like in the 90s movie. But in this movie, I think it works to some extent, but the other version of the backstory is infinitely better because it always gave the Turtles and Splinter a much closer connection to the martial arts that they were learning. And I think the last thing about this movie that I don't like is its style, because I think it's a pro and a con. You can easily tell that this movie was inspired by Spider-Verse, and I love the Spider-Verse animation, and I think it works really well here. But then they mix live action footage into the animated world, and in some ways, like in the multiverse in Spider-Verse 2, I think it works, but here I just don't think it works, and it honestly is just a little weird. They play real life YouTube videos in the background, they watch movies, but it's never animated, it's always real life footage, and it just doesn't mesh well. Aside from live action footage being used in this movie, I would say that the rest of the visual design in this movie looks pretty good aside from the humans that I talked about earlier. I will say that the pencil drawn effect is not the same as in Spider-Verse. It is different enough to the point where it is unique, and I'm not gonna lie, it kind of gave me a little bit of a comic feel to it. Spider-Verse felt like it was a comic book come to life, but this one really felt like it was a Ninja Turtles comic come to life. The style of this movie, I gotta give it credit, is unique because it is the Spider-Verse style, but it's not quite the Spider-Verse style. They use a lot of pencil in this, and they use a lot of imagery and stuff like that is pretty well done and honestly gives the movie a really distinct feel. Now let's talk about some of the stuff I actually liked about this movie. One, it's actually well put together. For the most part, I'll say it's well put together. It's not an amazing best Ninja Turtles movie of all time. I think it's just another Ninja Turtles movie because I think the movie's good. It's not amazing because I'm not going to say that it's amazing just because it has a Spider-Verse style or just because it's new. I'm not going to say those things, but it is a good Ninja Turtles film. It is another good Ninja Turtles film, but it's not one of the best Ninja Turtles films. Maybe it's up in the top 3, but that's because we don't have too many amazing ones. I like how this movie tries to take the message from the second Bay film of them being accepted by humans and actually tries to do something with it, unlike the second Bay film. I mentioned this earlier, but the movie takes the Spider-Verse animation, which I love, and it kind of changes it up a bit with a little more pencil-drawn animation to try and make it look like a different kind of comic book. The voice acting in this movie was all around good, and some of the casting in this, like I said, was kind of wasted, but it was still done well. And I did like how the Turtles were actually teens in this movie. Instead of being young adults, they're actually young teens in this movie because usually it says Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but usually they're like 19 years old or 20 years old or 18 years old. By that point, they're basically adults. Here, they're actually 13 or 14 years old. So I actually like that this one is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, not 19-year-old Ninja Turtles. Even though I pointed out a lot of things about this movie that I did not like, this movie's not bad or anything. It's a decent Ninja Turtles film, but I just see it as another Ninja Turtles film because it's not amazing. It doesn't stand out as the best Ninja Turtles movie or it's better than everyone before it. It's another Ninja Turtles film, and it's a decent Ninja Turtles film. I gotta give the movie credit where credit is due because it's not like any other movie I've seen or any other Ninja Turtles movie I've seen. Even though this movie is just decent, at least it's unique enough and it stands out enough as a Ninja Turtles movie, and it's unlike any other Ninja Turtles movie I've ever seen. So I will say that because it stands out from every other Ninja Turtles movie and at least tries to do something with its premise and tries to take it in a new direction, I gotta give them credit for not just repeating what we've already seen. But what do you guys think of Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem? Was it another amazing Ninja Turtles movie? Was it just another Ninja Turtles movie? I'd love to know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. God bless you guys. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more, make sure to like and subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.